Welcome to the show, Emboldened with Jessica. I'm Jessica, and joining us we have
Ariel.
And Kathleen.
Today we're going to be talking about something that I've been noticing coming up a lot for a variety of people, whether it is folks who are millennials and we're maybe for some of us in the middle of our careers and we were told that life would look a certain way if you follow steps 1, 2, and 3, then 4, 5, and 6 will happen. And we're noticing that what was once the path is no longer. And certainly for folks who are Gen Z who had to, or who often were experiencing their high school years, their college years, their teenage, younger years during a pandemic, and have again been told that if you do all of these things, then life will lay out in this beautiful way. And they're noticing that the goalpost continues to change and that the basic things that we were told, like, oh, you'd be able to afford a place or afford groceries, be able to work in your career field, a lot of those things have shifted and are not what we were told they would be.
As you were talking, I also thought about, I guess that from another side, where we're brought into this world, and somehow people have already given us a map of how things are supposed to be. Like, you're supposed to go after your partner, you're supposed to try to get that job. Like, they're already putting you in a lane. And then
Mm.
as you're living your life, you're like, I actually don't think I belong in this lane that the world or society has put me in. And I feel like a lot of people are coming to that realization in their middle age. Like, what if I don't want to do what they want me to do?
It is fascinating that before a child is even here, there are relatives, there are people, there are community leaders who have already decided what your life is supposed to look like, and you better get in line. And where that comes from, I think, is kind of interesting in terms of who does that really serve at the end of the day. Also, sometimes I think that they are teaching us what they felt like was the blueprint, what they felt like would work for us. But sometimes they're not even teaching us that. It's based off of what they didn't accomplish, um, how they feel like they can prove themselves through what their kids do. It's coming from a lot of places that are not the most authentic all of the times. So today we really want to talk about how do we decouple our identity from productivity? How do we let go of who we thought we would be? And also, how do we make peace with change timelines? So, we're going to go into some statistics around layoffs and work because as we're talking about these change timelines, part of what we're navigating is the fact that job stability is not it's not doing what it's supposed to do, okay? The Institute for Women's Policy Research cites that Black women whose job losses made up more than half, 54.7% of job losses for all women, which that's kind of wild. So, part of what we're seeing in terms of the labor market is that it's disproportionately impacting Black women, especially Black women with degrees. So, given that Black women are only representing 14.1% of the workforce, the fact that we're making up 54.7% of job losses for 2025 is telling. So, another statistic that I think is kind of interesting in terms of folks who have graduated with a bachelor's degree as of June of 2025. This is for folks that are of the class of 2024. Their unemployment rate was about 4.8%, which is pretty high. So about 41% of that class, keep in mind this is a year and a half, well, no, not a year and a half, but a year after they graduated, only 41% of them were able to secure a full-time job in their field. So that's pretty terrible. Um, and one of the data points that I find interesting is a lot of times as Gen Z folks are talking about this job market and how harsh and how brutal it is, a lot of times millennials will kind of talk about what we experienced given the recession that happened in 2008. And so Not that these are apples and apples, right? Because we definitely live in a very different world than it was in 2008. But I found it interesting that for 2008, there was about a 9% unemployment rate for people with a bachelor's degree. So, ooh, not quite double what we're experiencing now, but really close. And so, just kind of thinking about those two generations and how what the workforce looked like when they graduated was not at all what it was when we entered college and what we thought it would look like when we graduated. As a result, so many of us maybe went and lived with our parents. Maybe we lived with roommates. We did a variety of things. We worked outside of our field. We worked multiple jobs to pay the bills. Not that it's the same, but I think it is an interesting comparison. So, part of what I want to normalize right now is not just for folks who went to college and have a bachelor's degree, but for so many of us, we were told that if we work really hard, if we sacrifice and we focus on working and making money, or we focused on studying, then we could have freedom when we became quote unquote adults. And right now, we're seeing that everything is way more expensive than it was. We no longer can buy a three-bedroom house for 40K in a way that some folks, some older folks were able to do. Cost of living is entirely different than it once was. The type of loyalty that a person could have to a job is no longer. And so, as we're kind of living in the now, I want us to just notice what were we taught? What of it is useful? What things do we want to allow to kind of pass to be released?
Let's imagine that you're like a 23-year-old back in the early 2000s and you're about to go into that workforce. What sacrifices do you think that were like inherent in your mind? Like, I'm going to have to get rid of that. I can't do that anymore because I'm an adult and I'm about to do my full time job. Like,
Right.
what are
Mhm.
the sacrifices?
In my mind, I felt like, okay, there's a level of not having as much fun because I need to work, A, and so I was working non-traditional hours because I needed to make a decent amount of money. So I was working, I think, second shift. And also this belief around I don't have a lot of money right now, but I need to work as many hours as possible. I need to prove myself, right? I need to go above and beyond. I need to work late. I need to say yes to all of the things that I'm asked. I need to prove myself so that one day I don't have to work like this in a rabid
Mm.
kind of way. So that's my personal experience, but in terms of, like, an average 20-year-old, I just think there were certain things in terms of living, maybe even traveling or exploring who we were and what we wanted to do that maybe didn't feel in reach. And I know Kathleen spoke to some of this during our episode on navigating being a child free adult when she spoke about how the plan was, you work hard, you get married, you have babies, and like that's what you're supposed to do. And so that felt like the thing that we were supposed to focus on instead of allowing the 20s to be a time to really see what am I really interested in doing
Mm.
outside of having to impress my quote unquote supervisors at this company and sacrifice, like what do I want to do during the week and not waiting until the weekend to do it? And how do we also decenter men in dating?
I think the common letdown is going through life in these sprints. And it's always structured in this way where you're in school for this grade, then you get a summer break, then you go to the next grade and you get a break. And then once
Mm,
you enter the workforce, this becomes just the everyday life. There is no sprint necessarily in the everyday job. It's you work every day and you get the weekends off and the standard
Mm.
roles. And
I
Mm.
then
do get the weekends off because now I have to do laundry. I need to go grocery
exactly.
shop. I need to take care of all the things I couldn't take care of during the week.
Yeah, I will say it's one of the things that you said was you mentioned the example of decentering men, and it's almost like one main point of this episode is how do we decenter our jobs?
Jobs.
Oh,
That's how they get us in our 20s,
yeah.
getting into that workforce, and then like all of a sudden you have this 8-hour work day, and then and honestly you're lucky if it's only 8 hours. So
Oh,
you're
for
yeah,
sure.
that job is with you all the time.
Oh, for sure.
I love decentering your job. And I know something that we also talk about is this connection to the identity. I know that's how you introduced it, Jessica, with just talking about what are we outside of the work that we do? And it's decentering the work because meeting people for the first time, it's like, what do you do for a living? People are almost bragging about the number of hours they're working for the week. Like, I'm so busy. I have all of this that I'm doing. But it's like, what is enjoyable to you in life? Who are you outside of your job title?
Mhm. Jobs will pass away. These job titles, they'll pass away. These corporations, they'll pass away. And then what is remaining? And I think that is kind of why people are experiencing what some are calling their quarter life crisis,
Mm.
their midlife crisis, this kind of crisis of who am I if I strip away these things I was taught was so important that I'm realizing is actually not important and is contributing to me feeling unwell mentally, physically.
And it
Uh,
sucks that they get us when we're so young and our minds and everything is so malleable, or we've also just been trained to buy into that in the sense of like in your 20s, get that full-time job, get those benefits,
Mhm.
and like what Kathleen said, then once you do all that, you can then, what, 30 years from now, 40 years after that, then
If
you can
you're
relax.
alive, right? If you have any money left. I mean, well, and to speak to your point, Ariel, in terms of they get them while they're young, that was one of the only questions that adults would ask us as kids is, "What do you wanna be when you grow up? How are your grades? What's your favorite subject in school?" You know, it was all kind of related to, "What are you gonna produce?" And you're taught by their responses. Because if I say, "I wanna be a dancer when I grow up," well, now you're taught by their responses what is a suitable occupation and what is not a suitable occupation, right? And even taught what is suitable in terms of who you might like or love, right? Because let you say, "I'm in love with my best friend Susie," and the reaction and the responses, right, lets you know, "Oh, okay, that's not an allowable answer. That's not an allowable way for me to live." And, that has a huge impact on us.
So, what do you all think? Have you heard of this recent trend called the mini retirement or micro retirement?
No, I have not.
Is
What
it
is
like when they take a sabbatical from their job
Yes.
or
Yes, it's something that's becoming popular, mostly, I wanna say Gen Z, some millennials as well, where taking extended breaks from work, either weeks or months, during
Mhm,
the, I guess, prime time when everybody is really at that stage where they're trying to climb the corporate ladder typically, but they take that time to travel or recharge or pursue other passion projects. And I just really love this concept. I know it can be difficult to do because you have to have the finances to live your life during that stretch of time without receiving this steady income. And then you have to be confident that you will be able to easily re-enter the workforce, which
mhm.
at this time, as we talked about earlier in this episode, it's a lot of people are experiencing unemployment, so that might not be an easy thing to do, but I love the concept.
I do
Mhm.
too. Yeah, I laugh not because I think the concept is ridiculous, but that you're always hearing about something that I've not heard about, and I'm like, "What is this?" I mean, I count what I'm experiencing right now as my retirement, right? So I'm saying that I am in semi-retirement. I'm not working the amount of hours that I used to work. One of the things that I hear from a lot of folks that are around my age is that they have been working since many of them were 15, 14, 16. And so now to be in their 40s, they they have been working a very long time, and there is a desire to rest. And I don't think we need to work forever to enjoy rest. We should be enjoying rest consistently. So, part of the question is, who would you be? What would still be true about you if your job disappeared tomorrow? Part of this is allowing for some space to examine and explore, who are you? What are you into outside of the expectations and outside of what you feel like you're allowed to engage in? I feel that it's really important for us to acknowledge that the system is whack. I would use another word here, but I'm trying to keep this maybe a non-explicit episode. But part of the part of the process is allowing the feelings that are emerging. What is it? Let's not push it down and minimize and say, "Oh, it just is what it is," or "I feel no ways about what's happening," or the fact that I was told to do all of these things, I've done all of these things, and now what? And everything looks a mess and is not a mess, but it looks a lot different than I thought it was gonna be. So let's acknowledge whatever feeling is there. And that feeling could be disappointment, it could be hurt, it could be resentment for some of the older folks who allowed the system to look the way it looks right now. Okay. It might be feeling discouraged. So, allowing some time to really allow whatever is there to be there and to have some healthy ways to work through it. So, once we're acknowledging it, we're looking at it, we might journal, we might do a workout, we might go for a walk, we might vent to our friends. And then what? Then we might release some of the expectations that don't serve us. So, acknowledging with the anger that, yeah, that was messed up, that I can do everything in the way that I was told to do it. I can make all of these sacrifices, and I'm not having any of the rewards I said I was told I would have. And so, how do we release those expectations that don't serve us?
I think another thing is how we can make pivots in our lives at any point, and we
Mhm.
have the right to do that. And so, this whole decoupling ourselves from our jobs, I think, is extremely helpful into figuring out, okay, not just who I am outside of work, but what options are available to me to make a living, to bring income into my life that is not within maybe a traditional means or doesn't follow the path that you thought you were on after college or what you received your degree in or what you've been working in different industries for this long. And I know we talked about how the unemployment rate is right now. There's a lot of discussion about AI and what kind of positions are going to be available in the future. And
Mm.
so there's always time to either reinvent oneself or to have a breakthrough. And so I have some examples. So, one, I was interested in this because I'm turning 40. Okay.
Oh,
Mm.
And so I have just been thinking about, I'm just getting started here. There are so many things that I still want to accomplish. There's so many things that I just want to do. I now have a different view on what I enjoy doing in life.
Mm.
And I think some of that has to do with the pandemic time and being able to work from home more or just thinking about things are what's important to me and how I spend my time. But there was a recent Oprah podcast episode where she had a guest on and they were speaking about the best entrepreneurs are often in their 40s. Specifically, the peak age is around 45. And
Mm.
a lot of that has to do with having lived life and experienced things in life, established networks, having more emotional resilience, having more practical judgment. And so I found that to be interesting. And so I also was looking up, okay, who else found success later in life? And one person who came up, Morgan Freeman, became had his breakout debut at age of 50. And that's when he really became a household name and well known. Vera Wang entered fashion at 40. This one was a little interesting. I did a little bit more research. She was working in the fashion industry and was
Mhm.
working as an editor at Vogue and Ralph Lauren. But then she took the leap and opened her own bridal salon in New York at age of 40.
Mm,
So she had been around
mhm.
fashion, but then she kind of broke into this different industry.
Well, and what a smart industry in terms of weddings. I mean,
Yes.
we don't know where the money resides in fashion. I mean, that's it's just it's interesting. So, yeah, it was
Mhm.
a smart move and perhaps part of her work working for some of these other companies, she kind of realized where her niche might be, where she wanted it to be.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And then Stan Lee created Marvel's biggest characters through the ages of 39 to 43. And he created a $1 billion legacy with that. So
Mhm.
it was inspiring to see just how people can continue to reinvent themselves, find success in later stages of life, and even statistically be more successful at creating success at a later age just because of the life experience that they have.
Part of what you're sharing with us is that there's no timeline on success. And a lot of times the people that we hear about are young. This young person is doing this and this young person is doing that. And so that really perpetuates this false narrative that in order to be successful, I should have started 15 years ago. And for all of us, we can't do that. We can't start 15 years in the past, but we can start today. And so I appreciate you taking the time to look up some really incredible artists, creatives, success stories of folks who did things on a different timeline, on their own timeline, and it has really worked out for them. I think it's important for us to have these other viewpoints because so often we are in our own kind of isolated silos in the sense that we feel like we compare ourselves to the people who are maybe the most explicitly showing us how they're doing, right? And so those are for sure people's highlight reels, the things that they're posting on LinkedIn, the things they're posting on social media, and so as a result, we compare ourselves to them because that's who is the most visible. Or if we're scrolling and we're on social media, we're seeing people, we're following people and we're seeing people who are having success and we're comparing ourselves to that. And we don't usually have a really good viewpoint of really how everyone else is honestly doing. And so I think it's cool to see what other people are doing. And if we're inspired by that, right? Not trying to compare or compete, but we can be inspired by what others are doing. But we also need to open up our own viewpoint and to acknowledge what others are doing. Yep, that's super cool. And what is it internally that I want to be doing? What is the thing I want to do every day? We've talked about in previous episodes about even when you work for yourself, you're working a lot. And so we do spend a decent amount of time at work. And the time outside of work, what do we want to be doing? What do we want to be doing at the time at work? All of it is super important. And we get to decide what that looks like. No matter what others are saying, let's mute their voices or at least turn them down several notches. Let's put in some noise cancellation earbuds and listen internally to what it is that we're wanting.
I think I want to add sometimes you just need to take a moment, go back if you can to that foundational you. What did you actually enjoy when you weren't working? You can try to discover things that you enjoy that have absolutely nothing to do with a job. Getting back to basics a little bit.
Oh, for sure. What is the thing that I used to do that used to light me up? Was it that I was
Yeah.
looking at magazines and I was seeing people in different countries traveling and that felt really exciting to me? Was it that I would collect cars and I really liked the shine on the the colors and I want to visit car shows. Was it that I was really excited about cooking, but maybe I wasn't allowed to cook, or maybe we didn't have the groceries to experiment in the ways that I wanted to. And so now
Correct.
when I'm older, like I have access to like these awesome ingredients. Like, what can I create? So yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's part of listening in, not just to the adult you that's like, we have to pay bills, or
Mhm.
life is going to be terrible unless I follow this path, right? That's not even the adult you. That's what's been uploaded.
And
That's
it's
part of
just
the
like
narrative.
rediscovering yourself, getting back to the basics of getting to know you and things that identify you at your core as opposed to it just being your job.
I love that. I want people to think about, are there artist residencies that interest me? Is there a place that I've always said I wanted to visit? What am I waiting for? It's there now. Let me go see it. Is there some type of floral arrangement class that you've been wanting to take? Or maybe you've been really interested in textiles and you want to learn more about them. Whatever that is, give yourself permission to do that in this season. That when we put things off, we delay, 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 life happens, and life happens without our input. And that's something that I just feel like we can't accept. We already know everything continues to change. If there's an opportunity for us to do something we really want to do, what are we waiting for?
And I think this then kind of circles back to one of the things you mentioned early on about some of the questions that people ask when they first meet you is,
Mhm.
so what do you do? It starts with us. So what other questions could we ask people instead of that? You
Mhm.
first meet somebody, you're out there in the world, networking maybe, or you're just out at a restaurant or something and you're meeting somebody for the first time. What's a different question you could ask instead of saying, "What do you do?"
Some of the questions that I like instead of "What do you do for a living?" or I just think asking someone, "Where do they live?" is so personal. I don't know why.
It
You've
is.
asked someone that?
It is. People are weird.
But I like, are there any exciting projects you're working on right now, in life? Or if someone really wants to talk about work, they can talk about work. Another one, do you have any exciting travel coming up that you're looking forward to? Some of those questions I think could be fun because it can help you actually get to know who the person is and not just what they do for a living or some sort of status thing. A hard one, though, that I've noticed in group settings is asking people what their hobbies are. I find that sometimes people have a hard time answering that one, but I do think it's a good question. But as we see, a lot of times we don't have time to make room for hobbies. It's
Or the
always,
money.
yeah, or the money because
Mhm.
it's always just so work focused. But
Mhm.
that's something that I've tried to make sure, like, what kind of hobbies can I actually do? And there are some good free ones like reading and things like that.
And you have to be clever to know how to read and not pay money in terms of making sure you have a library card, and are you even near a cool library that has a lot of different things, or, using a digital library card. But one of the questions that I just absolutely adore, tell me, what's bringing you joy lately?
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
you really have to pause there because that could be a variety of things. It could be, wow, you know what? These beautiful flowers just bloomed in my backyard. And each morning that I see them, they're giving me everything they need to give. Or I just found this really cool cafe in my neighborhood and they have these really amazing pastries that just dance on my tongue. Like it allows you to really get to know a person, and also it impacts their nervous system. Because now instead of me like having to prove myself to you and tell you what my occupation is and see if you deem that worthy enough, I now get to go into my mind and think about what is bringing me joy. Do you
Deep.
have one, Ariel?
So what's a non-serious debate you'd love to have?
Mm,
And then
mhm.
but with their answer, I can decide like, oh, how serious they are. But if they go to like, you know what? I want to debate that waffle fries are the most superior fry ever. And then that's when the debate starts.
I think this is a good time to bring up a person's special interest and see if they are aligning with it. You do talk about your special interest, you light up in a different way. And so,
Mhm.
does the person draw near and they listen and they're excited that you're excited? Or are they waiting to tell you about something about them? One of my special interests is bakeries. I love a bakery. And so, if I'm in a new space, I want to know, is there a bakery nearby that's good?
Mhm, mhm.
And now we're talking about that, or you abhor bakeries and you only know about the latest Pilates space, which okay, neat. But that lets me know I can move on to the next person because maybe they know
Yes,
about a bakery spot.
you know where they stand, and it's like, "Okay, got it."
And so, again, noticing in our nervous system, not just what the questions are that feel right, but I like your approach, Ariel, in that you're seeing what feels comfortable to you in the moment, what comes up in the moment, right? And so, kind of honoring, how do I feel as I'm talking to this person? Does it feel like they're actively listening? Are they scanning the room for the next person to talk to? Sometimes someone scanning the room is not necessarily that they're looking for someone to talk to. It could be that eye contact is challenging for them. It could be that maybe they're thinking of the next thing to say. It could mean a variety of things. But you noticing in your own nervous system, does this feel like a person that I want to stay and linger and talk to, or am I ready to bop off to the next?
I will say though, it might be a good opportunity too to answer the question in the way you want to answer it as well, because I could maybe see all of those topics being really interesting, and if I wasn't quite sure why you were asking me that or used to getting a question like that, I might answer in a more serious way, but then if your response was, "Well, I wanna talk about how waffle fries are the superior fry," I'd be like, "Ooh, let's sit down.
Yes,
Let's talk
yeah.
about that." Same with,
Mhm,
like, Pilates. I could enjoy a Pilates class, but I love talking about bakeries more. So, it
mhm.
could be a nice
That's
introduction to
true.
a topic that they might feel like, that vibes would be a
Mhm,
bit more lighthearted.
A lot of the times, these questions are just gauges, and
mhm,
sometimes it's not even the response. It's just like the tone, the personality that's behind it. Like, do I want to get to know this person
mhm.
anymore? Or sometimes you can get a sense of like a person, like if they're asking you a question, you can tell that they're asking because they want to talk about themselves. And it's just like,
Yes,
Yeah.
oh,
and yeah.
okay, got it.
Mhm.
You know what? There's so many things that are not verbal that are communicated, and so part of it is, it's a bid for connection, and so does the other person meet the bid, and they are answering honestly, they seem genuine, like you can kind of get that sense of that person, and you also can kind of get the sense of a person who, maybe there isn't quite that vibe or connection.
I just remembered one question I have never been asked, but I saw it online and I was like, that is really good. What question do you wish people would ask you?
What
Hmm.
would your response be to that, Ariel?
It depends in the moment. If I'm in a talkative mood, which is very rare, it would be whatever's on my mind in that moment. Like right now, it's a lot of romance books and genres and tropes. But if I wasn't in a talkative mood, I would be like favorite color, so I can give them a one word answer, and then we could be done talking.
Ariel is so cat-like. I can't think of a question for me that I would wanna be asked because I guess it just really depends on the person and their energy, how much I feel like sharing. But what about for you, Kathleen?
Anything that isn't work related, especially if there's an emphasis in not trying to make it related. So, who are you outside of work, or what do you like to do for fun? Those types of questions
Mhm,
I appreciate way more. And it's so funny because there have been so many times in work settings where if we're talking about something pop culture related, my favorite restaurant, books, I start all of my team meetings talking about what everybody's reading because we all like to read, especially fantasy, the romantasy, those types of books. So I
Mhm.
start all of my team meetings like, "Okay, what's everybody reading right now?" Because
Mm.
it's just I do light up in a different way when it's not always work related, which
Yeah, well, there's a human moment. You wanna
yeah.
have human moments throughout the day.
Exactly, and we get our work done, we have
Mhm.
time for
Oh, good.
that,
Good,
and I
yeah.
know
Mhm.
certain people who are kind of like a no BS, no frills, so I know when I'm meeting with them, we're just getting straight to the point, "Let's get the work done, knock it
Mhm.
down." I appreciate that too, but I
Mhm.
just love the whole, like you said, the human aspect. We have so much more going on, so much more that we're dealing with or experiencing in life than what's happening between 9 and 5.
You're speaking about this ability to be kinda nimble, right, with who it is that you're talking with. And, there are some folks who they like to be direct to the point, and it's not that they don't wanna have a human moment, but for whatever reason, it's like, that's where it's at. And so, yeah, we get that, we move on. And then noticing that there are other people who they do need those moments to breathe, to be able to talk about what they're interested in, to be able to share really authentically about who they are. And so when people allow you to do that, of course, that's awesome that you're able to make these moments. You're able to create spaces for that to happen. So the invitation, if you are driving, this is probably not a good time to close any eyes. But if you want to come back to this later, it'll still be here. So to take a moment and to just settle where you are. Let your body have the chair, the floor, or whatever feels the most comfortable, and just allow that to hold you. Notice where you're feeling the most support. It could be in your legs, might be in your back, and feeling into that support. Eyes open, eyes closed, whatever feels the most supportive. And before we change anything, let's just notice. So we're noticing our natural breath. And I want to invite you to take a moment and to think about where in your body do you feel the pressure of where you should be in life? Is it in the chest? Is it in your jaw, your stomach, maybe somewhere else? We were often given these timelines before we even knew ourselves. We were given ages, milestones, roles, these markers of worth. And instead of arguing with those expectations, let's just locate where they're at. And we want to ask internally, whose timeline am I carrying right now? Is it the timeline of my peers, the timeline of my parents, my partner, a mentor? And you don't need to answer in words. Allow your body to respond. Sometimes this might show up as an image, a memory, a sensation, or even a shift in our breath. Let's name that old expectation. So, silently or loudly, whatever feels right, finish this sentence. I learned I would be okay if I did blank by blank. Notice what happens in your body when you say that. Did you brace? Did you clench, shrink, speed up? Did you go numb? Are you still with me? Some of these rules, some of these expectations were put on us based on a rule book that is no longer. Allow yourself to put that to the side, and we can kind of examine that more later. So I invite you to take a slower breath. Allow it to be released with your natural exhale. We're releasing whatever that expectation is. So we're inhaling what we want, even if we don't know what it is. Maybe it's a peach plume of smoke. Maybe it is a fragrant breeze. On our natural exhale, we're releasing, and on our natural inhale, we're breathing in something that feels positive, radiant, spacious. And we're releasing on the natural exhale what no longer serves us. And if we weren't quite sure if the expectation serves us or not, then that's still to the side. We're working to separate worth from timing, and we're separating worth from others' expectations. So we're bringing attention back into our room. So whatever room we're in, if eyes were closed, an invitation to open them. If we want to keep having them closed, that's fine too. So we're bringing our attention to something that's neutral in the room. So it could be the feeling, the fabric. It could be the fabric of your clothing. It could be the feeling of the floor or the seat. It could be the feeling of the temperature in the room. Maybe your awareness is going towards a sound. So it could be the sound of my voice. It could be the sound of a clock ticking. And if your eyes are open, it might be a color that feels a little bit more positive than neutral. And allow your nervous system to just feel into whatever that is that you're bringing your attention to. The texture, the color, the sound. And when you're ready, gently ask, if my worth wasn't measured by timing, what would matter to me right now? Not forever, not your life purpose, just right now. And place your hand somewhere that feels supportive. It could be self-touch, a hand over heart, hand over cheek, hand over belly. It might be a touch of maybe a blanket nearby, maybe the chair nearby, whatever feels supportive. And notice what your body does as it's being supported by that touch. Does it soften? Does it tighten? Does it stay neutral? If it tightens, then we might examine moving the hand to a different body part or to not a body part or wherever feels a little bit more supportive. Remind yourself that my life is not late. My life is responding. And to consider to fill in the blanks for, in this season, I actually need more of blank and less of blank. So filling in that with whatever feels the most supportive. In this season, I actually need more. Is it rest? Is it more music? More colors? And is it less worry? Less tension? Less stress? And so allowing whatever that is to be flexible and fluid. So we're not going to replace one rigid expectation with another. And to start to consider what is one small step that fits in with what my capacity is right now, that's not rooted in comparison. Is it something that might feel slower? Is it something that might feel just a little different? And allow that to be enough for today. And when you're ready, I invite you, if eyes were closed, to open them again. Looking around, taking in the shapes in your space, taking in colors and coming back to this present moment. So as we release old timelines and we notice what our body needs right now, just continue to take moments to pause throughout the week, throughout the day, and just notice, what does my body need right now? It doesn't have to be a big shift. It might be, I'm a little chilly, I need another cardigan. You know I love my cardigan sweaters, okay? It might be that maybe I've been sitting in a way where I'm scrunched up, and how can I shift my body to be a little more comfortable in this seat? Maybe it's that I'm a little bit hungry, but I've been thinking that I can eat after I'm done with this thing. Can we eat now? Can we honor the hunger? Just these small shifts where we're listening in to what it is that our body needs as we're releasing old timelines and constructing what serves us in this moment. Thank you for listening and being a part of the Emboldened with Jessica community. Know someone who'd love this episode? Share it with them. It's one of the best ways to help us grow. If you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review Emboldened with Jessica on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others discover the show and feel at home here. Have questions or ideas for future episodes? We'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or YouTube at Emboldened with Jessica. Until next time.